Strong Dads wants to thank Quality Auto Mart for joining us as a sponsor. Quality Auto Mart was born in 1985. They are owned and operated by Mark and Nancy Repke. Quality Auto Mart provides all the services, repairs, and maintenance for your vehicle's needs with a 3-year auto parts and labor warranty. They offer complimentary vehicle safety inspection and estimates. Also, they offer a shuttle service and the 4th oil change is always on them. They are located at 7307 on State Road 46 in Batesville, Indiana. Make sure you give them a call at 812-934-2301.
Welcome to Strong Dads. This is Merle Hutchinson, and I'm being joined from afar with Kyle Crawford. How far?
What's up, man? It's been a doozy of a day already.
I'm telling you. Well, we had already intended on doing a Zoom because there was great white snow death coming into our life, and so your girls were caught off school early. Yeah. So we're just being real with you guys out there listening. Like, yeah, we got to deal with all this good stuff too. And so you're home.
Merle, I'm a little frustrated. I think, calling off the day before, the white death, we don't even know if it's here, and they call off. Are we raising a soft generation? I'm fearful.
And so, I hear you 100%, but I worked in the schools.
Oh, well, that's true.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. So when we would wait to call things off the morning of, everybody would be pissed because they knew it was coming. And now I got to get plans to figure out my kids. And so
the lose-lose.
Yeah, it's a lose-lose. So we always do appreciate that they call it in the evening just because everybody can get their head straight. But I get you. I get you completely, especially on the rare occasion that they call it off the night before and the next day it's sunny and 70 degrees.
Yep.
All right. So, so you talk about it being a doozy of the morning, man, our strong dads have got to hear what happened.
See, I tried to divert the conversation a different route.
No. Yeah, I am not letting you out. This is so funny. But, man, it really could have been really dangerous. But
it could have been.
So give us the backstory. You had
So
right now you don't have any garbage cans, right? Is that
So for all you guys out there that don't know, I am a firefighter. I am what they would call a professional firefighter. I have been trained in this profession. So I have a small group in my house through the wintertime because I have a nice shop. The guys can smoke their cigars, in my shop. And as you can imagine, in a woodworking shop, I have lots of sawdust. And usually that sawdust finds its way into the trash can. And then after a group, I wheel the trash can out to the curb, Well, last night for the first time, I had the guys just like, I got to take the trash out. Just throw all your cigars in the trash can with all the sawdust. So as you can imagine, you can put 1 + 1 = 2. And cigars plus sawdust equals fire. And then the back half of that mathematical problem is I have no more trash cans. They done got fire, Merle. Both of them.
Somehow I might have to attach somewhere in here. You have to send me a picture, and I'll show the remnants of what your trash cans are. But here's the other kicker. It happened right by your electric box out in the front yard. And so you are having electric problems right now, right?
I have electric. I'm not sure
what's the rest of the neighborhood.
One of my neighbors, and I'm fairly certain it's the internet. So don't trash me in the comments here. I think it's internet that one of my neighbors and I have, because there's an extension cord like from the one box all the way up my street around. Yeah, so it's when I got up this morning and saw the lack of snow, I was like, well, I might go and do the show with Merle, and then, the fire happened. So
that's funny. Oh man, yeah. So I will include a picture on the show because it is pretty funny. I mean, there's nothing left but a big old black spot.
Oh,
these are your firemen, ladies and gentlemen.
Never a dull moment at the Crawford household.
That's
Never
funny.
A dull moment.
All right. Well, let's thank our sponsors, but we got to get into our show today because our show. Oh, man, I feel like we get called out a lot on our show. I mean, we just called you out, of course, with your little story there. But today's show just convicts the heck out of me. And I think it's going to convict every single guy that hears this because if it doesn't convict you, you're either a superhero or you're a flat out liar. One or the other. Why don't you thank our sponsors and let's roll.
I like it. Yep. Strong Dads, we would love to thank, who do we have? Oh, geez.
We got quality.
My mind's on fire now, Merle. Strong Dads, we would love to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions for coming alongside of us. Been an awesome sponsor for us. Continue to allow us to put shows out like this. So check them out. Let them know we sent you up there. Really do appreciate Casey's Outdoor Solution.
All right. We also want to thank Quality Auto Mart for sponsoring the Strong Dads podcast. So for all your automotive needs, whether it's fix and repair or even to make new purchases, especially in the golf cart arena. They are one of the largest golf cart dealers here in Southeast Indiana. And so we're pretty close right to Cincinnati. So for all your needs concerning automotive and golf carts, go check out Quality Auto Marts located on Route 46 outside of Batesville, Indiana. All right. So let's do the background. So the name of this actually is a phrase. I think Tim Ferriss may have coined this phrase in his 4-hour work week. And it's basically called lazy busy. Lazy busy. And as I was doing a little bit of work on this, I was like, oh my gosh, I am so guilty of this. I developed a new name for people like me.
Okay.
You're going to love this. Okay.
All right.
I am an activity distractor specialist.
Specialist. I like the specialist at the end of it. That's good.
Yes. So I'm an ads. So, and here's the idea. The idea is how we'll get so busy in all that we do. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing that. But it's actually a huge portion of it is in an act of laziness. That is laziness to avoid the big stuff that really needs to be carried out, taken care of, responsible for. All right. And especially when we're talking about what our goals in life are, what our priorities are, what we say is important, but yet we never quite seem to get around to them. I'll talk about even, reading scripture in the morning. Okay. And so I'll get up and have my quiet time. And if I have enough distractors around, like a phone, a little trinket on the table, a newspaper on the table, I will look and play with all those things prior to digging in to God's word. When I know that God's word, it should be my priority. I've called it my priority, but I will avoid.
Yeah. It makes me think this idea of saying you're busy when it's just kind of turned into that lazy, aspect of it. Man, I'm thinking, and obviously my schedule isn't like the most in the sense of, when I work, most guys are, I work on the weekends, but I'm kind of thinking that just the typical guy where, on the weekend, it's like, I just want to relax. And we've almost like coined this phrase, like I got a honey-do list of things to do, but it's like, right. Man, that couch is calling my name, right? And then all of a sudden you look at the clock, it's like, babe, it's 5 o'clock. I can't get to that stuff. I've been real busy today. I got football games on today, and you kind of like fill your schedule up with everything but what actually needs to get done, exactly like you were saying.
And you have a reason for all that you did, right? Yeah. You have a reason for it. It's not like you can say, no, I was just flat out lazy today. I didn't do anything or I didn't get anything done. You have a reason, because what you are doing, you fool yourself into thinking it's really important stuff.
I got fantasy football on. Like I got to make sure my players are performing the way they're supposed to.
That's a whole new level of lazy right there. So, I take a look at this, and the core of this problem is founded, kind of in what I believe are the following things. One, it just might be you lack priorities. And it doesn't mean you don't have them. It means you've not identified them. You've not, like, if I said, is this a priority to you? You might say, oh yeah, but you yourself have not identified it and actually, posted it out there for yourself to say, no, in my life, this is a priority and I will protect it. Okay.
Yeah. As you're talking about that priority, I was thinking, a little bit ago, I had someone actually approached me about doing a woodworking job, and they obviously they didn't know they were doing this, but they made a mistake. When I said they, I mean I was the one to receive the mistake, as they basically said, I just need this done. I don't really have a time frame, right? And so all of a sudden, everything else got put in front of them, and all of a sudden I looked down. I'm like, I still haven't even started this project. And exactly to what you're saying is I didn't prioritize it. I had the project at hand that I knew I needed to get done, but I didn't prioritize in the sense I didn't give myself that deadline. I didn't say it has to be done at this time. So I think to what you're saying, just the lack of priorities, the lack of actually giving yourself like this has to get done in this time frame. And for me, that works really well. It gives me that motivation, right? Because if I don't put in place those priorities, then I'm going to miss the mark all the time because I'm gonna fill my schedule up with other stuff besides what is of the priority.
Yeah. So I want to throw in a second problem that this is, because most guys out there listening right now will say, no, I have priorities. But the second part of a priority actually is the lacking of conviction. Okay. So I can tell you, because I think it's the right thing to say, it is, the Jesus answer that my family and God and all these things are priority, but they're not priority until this word comes into play. And that is, I lack conviction. I'm not convicted enough. And conviction is not guilt, right? Guilt is self-imposed. Conviction is the idea that something is important. And I am, it's important enough that I'm going to own it. Okay. I'm convicted, and that might create guilt. Like, man, I feel guilty when I don't do this. Okay.
Yeah.
So I lack conviction to my priorities.
Yeah.
So the idea of me now, okay, I need to name my priority, but then I need to make sure that I'm feeling convicted when I'm breaking the responsibility to the priority.
Yeah, I like it, man. This next one, Merle, I was just thinking that this idea of lacking focus and vision casting, like we talk a lot about, as a strong dad, the importance of having a vision. And man, the same can be said about just, some may say like just the everyday task, but I think even bigger than that, just what you're talking about, being a strong dad, being an involved husband, like, man, I think without a vision, and then even taking that a step further, without a vision that has a plan associated with it. So I could say I want to be a great dad. Like that could be a vision that I have in my life. But if I don't actually put tangible tasks in place to actually achieve that vision, actually grab a hold of that vision and make it a reality, then it's just a vision. Like there has to be actual tangible things that you can do right now, today, to achieve the vision that you want. So, man, I think it's so true that if you have a lack of vision or lack of focus, then yes, you're going to fall into the trap of just being the lazy busy, right? And I think it's just, man, the vision is such a huge part of what it takes to be a strong dad and what it takes to be a follower of Christ, what it takes to be, the husband that you want to be. But again, if it just stops at a vision, there has to be more to the vision than just a statement. There has to actually be, things put in place. I'm going to achieve A, B, C, D, E, F, all the way down in order to achieve that vision.
Yeah, that is for sure. It's just like you said, you're actually getting busy with the vision and making it, I don't think the vision should be a quiet secret either.
Right.
The idea that if I actually have a vision for something and I actually think something's that important, then people around me know that that's a big deal to me.
Yeah.
I think sometimes when we keep our vision a secret, it's also a way that we can kind of hide from what we're really saying is important to us. So the idea of like, no, like if I'm saying that this particular thing in my life is important, then my wife and family and friends should know it, right?
Yeah. Well, just to piggyback off of that, Merle, a couple of days ago, Jenny and I were actually doing a devotional book that you and Linda gave us after our marriage and family coaching session. One of the things it talked about was putting absolutes in your marriage. These are absolutes. And I think absolutes can be seen as a vision for your marriage. And, they talked about how, not being in a room with someone of the opposite sex for a long period of time, obviously there are certain situations, whether it be a coworker or whatever, those are obviously, not going to bed mad at each other. These are absolutes that they talked about. And it was nice to like look at like, okay, what are the absolutes we have in our marriage? And, because again, if the bigger vision is, divorce is not an option for us. Like that's a vision that Jenny and I have, that we're committed to one another. Then I think putting absolutes in place, those are almost like you're part of the steps in order to achieve that vision.
Yeah, that's good. Definitely. So here's one that I have to just be real honest on too. The next thing that contributes to the problem, and that is I'm just lazy. I'm just lazy. And I think actually that could be a pretty serious deal. Some people are just wired for energy, and some people are not. Like some people, they are almost sloth-like, and you're like, oh man. And so I think if you are lacking motivation in a large arena of your life and more consistently, okay, then this is actually something that I would encourage you to dig into. Do we have some medical issues going on? Do we have some lifestyle issues going on? Are we not eating well, exercising well? Are we not taking care of the engine? And that's why the motivation thing's just not quite there. Obviously, if I don't feel good or I'm tired, I'm going to gravitate more frequently to that laziness. But if that's a big part of your picture, if you find yourself being lazy, or your wife is like, you're just kind of lazy, I think it's something that we have to look at.
Yeah, man, so true. And I think this next part almost potentially could play a part into what you're talking about. This idea of being lazy. Man, I think this idea of seeing yourself as a victim and playing that victim card. This happened to me, or these are things out of my control, and you begin to kind of almost put like these justifications in your mind on why something didn't happen, and a lot of times it's just flat out their excuses, right?
Right.
And again, I think we all fall into this, myself included. This idea sometimes it's easier to play the victim than it is to actually say, okay, I'm going to actually put my foot down, the line in the sand. I'm not getting into this, right? And you begin to kind of use the phrases of, this happened to me, and these are things that I can't control, and versus actually taking charge and saying, no, this is what I can do. I'm going to make sure it gets done. It happens, and because if not, then all of a sudden you look down and you're like, holy cow, an entire week went by and nothing got done that was supposed to get done because you're playing the victim card, and it's like that's almost a way you can justify in your mind. And then I don't know about you, Merle. Sometimes like when I justify things in my mind and then all of a sudden I speak them out, I'm like, yeah, that didn't land very well. Like I'm in the wrong big time here, right? And I think that's something because, man, in my mind, I'm like, no, I don't ever play the victim card. Like, why would I? No, heck no. And then all of a sudden you speak and you're like, yeah, that was bad. That was pretty bad.
Yeah, this is really common. I mean, the idea, especially that if I'm so busy and I'm not getting things done, the idea here is who's actually in control. Well, I was so busy. I was running errands for you. I was doing this. I was doing that. And so really, I'm just the victim. Who's in charge of your schedule? Who's in charge of what you do with your time? And I think that's an important part. And as soon as I can just say I'm so busy because of everything that I have to do, now I've actually just claimed victim status. And and so now I'm seeking for somebody to feel sorry for me. Oh man, you're so busy. I couldn't do what you do. And that's a third line of BS.
Yep. Man, this next one, Merle, this is probably one of the ones that I fall victim to, right? It's not my fault, right? Is this idea of being fearful of failure?
Yeah.
Man, I hate failing. I hate it so much. And I find myself kind of like, trying to do everything to avoid the actual task at hand because I know that I'm not very good at it. And there is a chance that I might fail at it. And that's I don't want to say it scares me, but it's something that I'm a little bit more hesitant to jump into. If there's a task that needs to get done and it's like, man, I'm not quite sure if I'm going to be able to achieve that. I do find myself like taking that step back and like, well, I'll get to it later, right? I'll go after that later. But I think I don't know about you, Merle, man. I think this might just be a thing with guys because maybe there's obviously pride associated with that. This idea that I can't show weakness, I can't fail at something. So instead of attempting it and trying it, I'm just not going to do it at all.
Yeah, Kyle, you know about my story of the deck that I was going to build on the back of the house, and you and I both talked. That deal was 2 years in the making. And I had a lot of good reasons that kept me from doing it. Lumber prices just went up. Oh, I can't find a contractor. That whole first year was the size of that project
right
overwhelming me.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kept thinking, I'm I don't think I can do this, or I'm going to fail, or I'm going to have to look at this thing for the next year as I every time I walk by it and see it. And so there was a fear there that kept me from just jumping in. And part of it was also a pride issue. My pride said I wanted to say that I can do it because I think I had the mechanical skills to do it, but there are so many other limiting factors, just everything from my time. It would take me an hour. A pro could come in and do it in 5 minutes, and I just had to come to grips with the idea of, dude, you need help. You need some help. And so again, it was that failure that just kept me from that. I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet.
Yeah.
So anyway, I've been so guilty of all these different things. And I think, like I said at the beginning, if you are not struggling with anything that we talked about today, you're either, I want to meet you and shake your hand because you're like my next superhero, or you're like the rest of us and you're lying to yourself.
Yeah.
You're just avoiding it, and you're making yourself look busy. And so the bottom line here, guys, is okay, we struggle with these kinds of things. So let's get into talking about how we actually work through it so that we don't become victims of it more and more often, and we can actually get something done.
Yep. So yeah, man, as we kind of move towards that part of the show, man, I think it would be no different than if you were, and I'm sure anybody who has never dealt with addiction or who has dealt with, something of sorts like this, man, the first thing you have to do, you have to come to the grips with the fact that you are falling into one of the ones we were just talking about, this idea of lacking priorities, lacking conviction, lacking focus and vision casting. You're just flat out lazy. You're playing the victim card, or you're fearful of failure. I think coming to the grips with the fact that this is you, right? And similar to what you're saying, Merle, man, I don't know a guy out there that doesn't fall into one, if not all of these, right? So I think it's really important before moving towards, accomplishing something, and before moving towards the idea of not being the lazy busy and actually achieving what the task at hand. I think the first thing is you have to come to grips with the fact that you do fall into one of those, that you do have your shortfalls. You do, fall into this idea of being lazy busy. And I think that's one of the most important things, is actually telling yourself that, basically, saying that I have failed in this venture that I wanted to get into. So I think coming to grips with the idea that you do fall into one of those is really important.
Yeah, accepting the truth, right? I mean, and the truth always reveals itself because you can't not reveal it. And when you actually start to see over time, I see that I keep falling short. And you look at the fruits of the labor and you go, wow, well, the truth is, I say this is a priority, but the truth is, this is how I'm actually living. Okay. Right. And so looking at that truth. So I think the second thing, though, is then once you look at the truth, like you kind of just referred to as the idea of, okay, how am I protecting it with all my excuses? How can I own it and start catching myself in all these excuse making things that I'm doing? So, we've talked before in other shows, in the world of coaching people, there are two words that are trigger words for me to listen to when I'm talking to somebody. And that is but and because. But and because, and so but and because are the basic excuse prompters that try to save our butt. All right. I did this for you, and I know I probably should have not done it, but I did it because, all right. So now I'm just saving my face.
Yeah.
I'm trying to rationalize what I'm doing. And I have to catch that more and more. Wow, this stuff comes out of my mouth all the time.
Yeah.
You'll see your kids doing this. You'll see anybody do this that's always trying to protect their shortcoming rather than just say, yeah, I did this and I should have not done it.
Yeah.
So just let it hang right there. Let it hang right
there. Yep, I like that, man. This next one, Merle, I think is huge. I'm a big guy. I like the idea. I'm really big on the idea of vision making. And again, just somewhere I was talking about, not just stopping at the vision, but then let's write down some things that we're going to be able to do to achieve or attain that vision. And I think it's so true of writing down your values. We talk all the time about how a value system can really help raise kids, and the importance of a value system in raising kids, and a value system in a marriage. Just like I was talking about before, this idea of absolute. Man, I just think this idea of actually writing it down, because if you don't write it down, or if you don't, I know Jenny's really big. I can't tell you the number of times she'll like open up her phone to her notes that she's written down on something that she wants to kind of remember. She always writes down things, this new year, I want to do these things, and these are how I'm going to achieve them. And man, I think if you don't have something like that, if you don't have almost like a personal accountability, if you just think it like, okay, I'm going to do this, man, I think there's so much more value in actually writing it down, making it concrete, just like you were saying, actually telling someone else, these are the things I want to do, to be able to hold yourself accountable. Because if you don't have something like that in place, then that just lazy day turns into 2 lazy days. And then all of a sudden now it's like a whole week that I've wasted away because of XYZ things that I put in place before the actual priorities that I wanted. So I just think it's so important to have something in concrete, have it spoken in, so that way you kind of almost speak it into existence. I wrote this down. This is the line in the sand. I'm going to make sure I achieve this.
Yeah. I want to back you up just for a second, because there's 2 parts to this of really what we want to make sure we hit on. And I think oftentimes people will write down what they call their priorities, but before you even write priorities, you have to write your value system. Most people assume their value system. They assume it from their upbringing. They assume it from what their environment around them seems to think is important. And so it's really important that you, for yourself, you write down the things that you value in life. Right? I mean, if I don't, then my assumptions will start to actually show that maybe that's not as important as I say it is. So if I say, man, my family is the most important thing to me, but then as a priority, I say that, man, this year, I'm going to go on 3 hunting trips, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. I'm not saying not to go on the hunting trips. What I'm saying is, how does that match with your value system? How does it match? If it matches, if you can make it work and you're not pulling a big screen over it to cover it up, if you can make it work, then great. But if your wife and your kids are looking at you and saying, I thought you said you valued us, and here you're going to be gone 3 weeks this year, hunting bear. Okay, well, maybe we need to have a little come to Jesus meeting here. Yeah. So the very first thing we do is we talk about, okay, what are the things that we are going to say we're going to value? Then we can write our priorities out. And I always want to, something that has been difficult for me, because I'll throw values all in just a big blanket, like, oh, I value this, this, and this, and this. Well, not all things are valued equally. So I actually need to kind of rank order them. Like I value my job, but I don't value my job as much as I value my family. All right. And that rank order helps me realize that when I go to do certain things, well, listen, I might do something to jeopardize something about my job, but I'm not going to do something that's going to jeopardize my family. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And man, it's just kind of like just a smack in my face, because this has been something for sure this year I have dealt with, because if anybody that knows me, I have my 3 F's in my life: my faith, my family, and then the fire department, my profession. Those are like just what you're talking about. Those are my priorities. And it's hard because I have a big trip that I'm planning at the end of this year in November that is going to incorporate my faith and the fire service. And then also I have my golf trip, and Jenny's like, hey, all those overnight fire trainings that you want to do, like, let's pump the brakes on those, because those don't fit in with the idea of the priority that if you're saying your family comes before the fire service, but yet you're having all these trips you've already planned, so I had to kind of take a step back and like, you know what, babe, you're right. Like, okay, let this big trip that I have at the end of the year, like that incorporates my faith as well as, the fire service, and then again, the golf trip. But besides that, everything else this year has to be focused on the family, and it has to be making sure that those priorities are put in that place, because if not, then they're just words, right? They mean nothing. That then my word as a husband and as a dad, my kids and my wife are going to begin to say, okay, those really aren't your priorities. And if you can continue to say them, but your actions are not showing that.
Yeah. And I want, I'm hearing you completely. And so you and I talked a little bit about like some of these trips. We're not to throw a wet blanket on people's
Right.
funds and dreams and those kind of things. What we're trying to do is say, okay, before you get out over yourself, let's just see how this will impact the things that you say are valuable, that you really do want to build and
Right.
spend time with. And then, we work the other things in. You talked about in a couple of shows ago, the idea of put the big rocks in first, right? We put the big rocks in the jar first, and then we fill it in with the small stuff versus I'm going to put the small stuff in and maybe the big stuff will fit in. So that's kind of that priority rank order sort of thing.
Yep. I like it.
Yeah. So, the next thing is for us to, I'm so guilty of this. I've described myself before as the jack of all trades and a master of none. And another way to describe that brain is an ADHD brain, where I have a hard time focusing on just one thing at a time. I will get excited and sort of dream, and I'll have 5 things on the plate at one time. And all of them are important. Just ask me, right? So in my mind, I've convinced myself that all of them are important. And so one way that we start to beat this back is to actually say one at a time, one at a time. And so this is part of that priority list. Like once we decide what we're going to do, right, then we bump it up and we protect it so that it is one at a time. We're only going to spend time on this until we get it to a certain point or we accomplish it or whatever. So we really identify that. That makes sense to you, Mr.
Oh, yeah. And I was just gonna let you just keep going with it because this is big for me. This is something that I fail at constantly. It's like, all of a sudden I get inundated with things that have to get done. And man, if I don't, the old KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid, right? If I don't do that, if I don't have the ability to take, pump the brakes a little bit and say, okay, what's the first thing that needs done? What's the time frame that it needs to get done? Okay, what's the second thing that gets done? What is its time frame? And kind of put things in order. And again, going back to that priority, making sure that our value systems also align with what you're doing. Because if I have 15 things that need to get done, but my value system says that my faith and my family are number 1, number 2 in my life, and all of a sudden, 30 other things get put in front of them. But I've done, step 1, step 2, step 3, and I've done that before. But I've also missed the idea of my priority systems. Then I'm going to miss the mark wholeheartedly. So right. I think there's so much to be said about just keeping it simple. Let's go after one thing at a time because my brain doesn't work very well. I'm not a very good multitasker to begin with, so I have to do one thing at a time in order for me to feel like I'm actually going and accomplishing something.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the simple part. Now here's the more complicated part. And so here's how you actually do life in a bigger way. Okay. So when you think about a coach, so when I coached, you have all these kids that come in with multiple different skill levels, right? Yeah. And you also have kids that come in with skill deficits, and some of them are greater than others. But as a team, you have to prepare the entire team to get ready for the next meet or the match or the game, right? Yep. And so as a coach, what we'd have to do is we identified where we want to go, all right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like, okay, we do the vision casting, but then we would have to backtrack out, and you got to do every practice, all right? And so every practice, there's way too much to work on and get it all done in one practice. And so each day as a coach, when we designed out practices, we would say, okay, for the first 15 minutes of this practice, we're going to work on this skill. And that's the only skill we're working on. We're not doing anything else. It's this skill. We're all doing this. And you might have one kid on the team who does it really, really well. Okay. Yeah. And he's kind of like, really, I have to do this? And you have another kid who's like, it's the first time he's ever done it.
Right.
Okay. Well, remember, I'm looking for the entire season. So for today, we're all going to do this, and we've got 15 minutes on this. Okay. Mm-hmm. At the end of the 15 minutes, the kid who still isn't proficient, I'm not going to say, okay, guys, the whole practice is going to now be held up, and we're going to continue to work on this until little Joey over here figures it out. No. Right. No, I mean, life is a series of days. And so we're going to say, nope, okay, I had 15 minutes over. Now we're going on to the next task. And so we separate task. All right. I separate them so that, okay, now I'm working on this particular skill, and I'll do that for maybe the next 10 minutes. And then we'll do this for another 20 minutes. And so we separate things out so that, and we put a hard stop point on them so that they don't keep bleeding in to the next thing. All right. And so before you know it, like if I have one kid that is stuck in one area, he's consumed the entire practice. And really everybody else ended up, getting suffering from that. So it's taking a little bit of forethought and saying, and I find this with projects all the time, Kyle, like if I'm working on a project and I'm getting stuck in something that I don't either get or I'm not skillful in it, I'll get all frustrated. And the next thing you know, after 2 hours, I'm coming up and I'm ready to hit my head with the hammer. And it's like, I just need to get away from it. I need to go on to something else and then come back with a fresh mind and hit it again the next day. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. There's a couple of guys I follow in the woodworking community. They say you should put a clock in your shop.
Yeah.
So that way you look up and, okay, I spent an hour sanding this board, right? Where if you basically only thought you were going to spend 10 minutes on it, all of a sudden, because if you don't have a clock, if you don't have something that's holding you accountable, right? If you don't actually have the line in the sand that says, I'm only going to spend this long. I know even like on our show notes, like we try and put things on here that basically say this is how long we want to kind of discuss and talk about something. And the same, in the midst of a practice, when I used to coach basketball, it's like, okay, for 20 minutes, I want to work on this. And I actually put things on my practice notes to make sure that I'm basically holding myself accountable. So that way, all of a sudden, I don't look back and say, holy cow, we spent the entire practice on what little Johnny needed to work on, just what you were saying.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it just helps us keep moving, but yet working on multiple skills, but not getting it messy. All right. The last thing is the idea of, and you said it kind of just there with the idea of the clock. The corporate world has found this out. The corporate world in many areas have gone to like 40-hour work weeks, but we're going to do it in 4 days rather than 5. And one of the things that we start to realize is that people will be as busy as their schedule provides. And so if you all of a sudden tell a guy that, hey, you know what, if we can get this job done by noon today, I'll give you guys the afternoon off. Well, the next thing you know, these guys, what normally took an 8-hour job time to accomplish, these guys are focused and drilling it and knocking out. They're getting rid of all the slop. Okay. And so the next thing you know, at noon, they're going, hey, boss, we got this job done. We're headed to the lake. See ya. And so the idea here of, and it tells us like how much slop we can put into our day. We see this with like homeschooling. Homeschoolers will tell you on a regular basis that what a regular school does in 7 to 8 hours, they can do usually in 2 to 3 hours. Right. And so, of course, that's all the other kids at school are going, you only go to school for 3 hours. I want to be homeschooled. Because it is super focused, time on task.
Yeah, man. So good. I think, as we kind of close out the show and we're kind of moving towards the end here, man, I think what a great place to start then to do exactly what you're talking about. Let's see what other junk do we put in our life on a day-to-day basis, on a week-to-week basis. It's kind of funny you said it because there's a podcast that you actually recommended that your sons are listening to, and it's called Chasing Scratch. It's a golf podcast. And in the show, they talk about, because they're going after trying to get to scratch golf, and they started out at 11 handicap, and now they're trying to get to a 0 handicap. And in that show, they said, hey, next time we meet for this show, go through and let's figure out how much time in an entire week do we have to focus on just golf. Like what type of time frame are we putting into this goal, this vision that we have? We want to achieve 0 handicap. Well, how much time do we actually have in our week? Right. And they found 6 hours that they could commit to this in a week's time. 6 hours to obviously still make sure that they're the functioning dad, a functioning husband. They have work stuff that they have to get done. So this is obviously like the play category, right? But I think it's so true. I think we could all do this. How much time do you have in your day-to-day, in a week-to-week, to actually put forth accomplishing a goal that you are setting for yourself or a vision that you're setting for yourself, how much time do you actually have in your week to be able to accomplish that? Because if all of a sudden you look and it's like, I only have 2 hours, I would almost say, okay, double down that. Are you sure you only have 2 hours? Like how much that time is spent on this thing, right? How much time are you wasting looking on your phone, trying whatever, whatever you're filling up your time with, man. I just think what a great place to start, because again, if we go back to, one of the ways in which we can kind of get out of this mindset or out of this lazy busy thing is actually come to grips with the fact that you do fall into some of the traps that you kind of put in your own mind. So I think what a great place to start, and actually like going through your week time frame, your week schedule, and seeing where's all the junk at.
Yeah. I mean, that's great stuff right there. So, all right. So the challenge of the week is obviously we went through and we gave some great places to start to clean up your lazy, busy schedule. But the challenge this week really is I need you to just identify one thing that's been hanging out and get it done. One thing this week, something that has just sat there on the shelf, been in the corner of the garage, just pull the stupid thing out and knock it out this week. I mean, the sense of accomplishment from a process or project that has been hanging over your head is one of the things that gives us the dopamine hit of, yes, I can do this. All right. And so I'm going to just challenge everybody out there, grab one thing, knock it out this week.
I like it. I love it. Hey, I hope you guys got something out of this show. Thanks so much for Quality Auto Mart and Casey Outdoor Solutions for coming alongside of us. Really do appreciate them. Check them out. Continue to share our shows, continue to listen and watch our shows. We really do appreciate you guys. If you guys got comments or you want us to try and tackle a topic, we're always looking for new things to talk about, that are meaningful to you guys. So if you have something, man, put in the comment section, reach out to Rockstyle Families. I know that they would love to come alongside you guys. If you guys are struggling with something, whether it be with your family, whether it be with your marriage, whatever that looks like with you, I know Rockstyle Families, Merle and Linda would love to come alongside of you and help you, tackle those tasks. So.
All right. Sounds good. So we do also just appreciate all you listeners out there. Give us those 5-star ratings, as we've talked about many times. So you know what? Like I always feel like you have to do the closing. It's just, it's your time. Yeah, it's better. You go ahead, knock it out.
Well, I'm looking out my window. I still have a big black patch in my grass. So
I got to put that in here.
Well, I go figure all that out. You guys go out there and be a strong dad.
Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Casey's offers a wide selection of plants, landscaping materials, home and garden decor, and gifts for every occasion. Casey's is committed to providing exceptional service, a unique shopping experience, and value to every customer. Stop in and see what makes Casey's so unique. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana, or call 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home.